Welcome, everybody. This is Tuesday Morning Grind, episode number 17. Today we have Nick Santora. Nick is the CEO and founder of Curricula, which is a learning management system and security awareness training platform. He's a former cybersecurity specialist at NERC, CISA, a lot of certifications, a lot of speaking arrangements to your name, a lot of expertise. Nick, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, Christian.
Cool, man. So there's a bunch of stuff I want to talk about today. Definitely want to talk about the entrepreneurship journey. That's my personal selfish interest, I guess. And then want to talk about the platform too, because we're both in the security space and we both know how important security awareness training and learning is. So to kind of kick it off, man, I want to hear your journey. Like, I know that you started your career in NERC and did a lot of security work there. And then at a certain point, you made the jump to entrepreneurship. And I know that's a risky move. A lot of people are afraid to do that. So can you talk a little bit about your journey there, how you started the company?
Yeah. So what was this, back in 2013 or something like that? But I was at NERC for almost 7 years in my career there. And it was back in around 2013, Christmas time, saw this. I used to fly around, do audits, investigations, advisory, you name it. And the problem kept coming up where doesn't matter how big the utility was. So utilities have to follow these highly regulated cybersecurity laws for NERC SIP compliance. And, when I kept seeing that all of the laws were being violated in the personnel and training area. And when it came time to just people not be able to track it and then not teaching people the right things, it didn't matter if you were a multi-billion-dollar vertically integrated utility or a small municipal, the problem kept happening. And I kept seeing it.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is crazy. So, who's going to do something about it? And realistically, when you think training and cyber, the only company in the world that comes to mind is SANS. That was the only company doing this stuff. Good training for technical people, not good for people that don't know the technicals. So, I figured there was such a gap in the market. And heck, if I was doing a good job at flying around talking about it, why not make a company around this topic? So flew home, talked to my buddy Joe back in my hometown in New Jersey about the problem that I kept seeing. And we were laughing, saying, man, wouldn't it be fun if you could just actually teach people the right way? That would be pretty interesting business. And it sounds simple as it was, but it just wasn't being done. And from there, basically, fast forward a couple years, because I couldn't build something while at NERC. So I said, I'm going to just quit NERC and start my own training company for NERC. That was the original idea.
Yeah.
And, when we came up with that concept, it just kind of stuck as I think that'd be kind of cool. And lots of things happened along the way, but ultimately we launched in March of 2015 and the rest is history.
Are you the kind of guy, did you always know you were going to start a business, or was this kind of opportunistic?
It was funny. We were just talking about this a couple months ago, and we actually started a skateboarding company when we were 10 years old.
Yeah.
Gonzo skateboards. And it was legit. At 10 years old, we were ordering from a manufacturer in Canada, having boards shipped to us here in the US. We bought silk screens and airbrush machines and stuff, and we would shrink wrap them and go to skate shops and put them on consignment for the ones that didn't trust us. So we've been doing this since we were 10 years old. So
that's kind of how I was. I was bugging buddies back in high school, let's start a landscaping business. Then in college, it was the web design business. And then I started my career in consulting out of college. And pretty much from day one, I was scheming on how to start a business. I didn't care if it was a coffee shop or a restaurant or a taco stand. I just wanted to start something. So that's kind of a common thread. Do you think, knowing that you wanted to start a business and kind of being entrepreneurial, did that make it less scary when it was time to quit the job and start Curricula, or was it still kind of nerve-wracking at the time?
Yeah, we did that. And then prior to starting Curricula, we actually ran a couple other sites under a different holding company. So little small businesses that did online ads and all kinds of stuff, e-commerce, iPhone apps, and you name it. And that gave us a taste of adulthood entrepreneurship and definitely made it a heck of a lot easier because we made a ton of mistakes in those couple years running those businesses, but we learned a lot. And I'll never forget the first day waking up after quitting NERC and then waking up, and it was our first Monday of being an entrepreneur and just didn't have to go anywhere. And I woke up, I'm like, this is crazy. What do I do? Like, like there was no schedule. No one knew what to do. We didn't know where to start, but we knew like, all right, well, freedom is there. You got to make your own schedule and kind of figure it out. And I guess that was pretty nerve-wracking, but we quickly figured it out in that first month.
Yeah, I always tell people that, especially like we recruit a lot of people coming from like a big consulting firm into like an entrepreneurial consulting firm at Risk 360. And like the cool thing about a startup, but also the very stressful thing about a startup is if you're sitting around and you're wondering what to do or who's going to do something, it's like, well, that's probably you. Like, you know,
Yeah.
who's going to refill the coffee? Who's going to go buy snacks? Who's going to create the new process for the client? It's like, well, probably you. You identified the problem, so you get to fix it. My first day at Risk 360, when it was just me, I went and worked at a coffee shop. There's like a local coffee shop in Smyrna called Rev. And I was sitting there kind of working, you know, trying to dream up how we were going to acquire clients. And I remember taking a selfie and sending it to my now co-founder, Christian, as kind of an appetizer. I was like, you ready for some freedom, man? Because he was, you
That's
know, he was at
funny.
his corporate gig doing his thing.
This is
Um,
that just reminded me of one photo. I don't know if you could see it here on the screen, but this is our early days of
oh, yeah.
Curricula and Juan. This is not as glorified as the Amazon in a shoebox thing, but like this is us at my apartment, just kind of figuring stuff out and just joking around.
Yep. That's awesome. How did you guys survive? Like, did you just go without a paycheck for a year, or was there like a little bit of income enough to pay the bills? Did you consult on the side, or did you guys dive straight into product development? How did that look?
Yeah, I mean, what was good about our business model initially was just it was very targeted, very small niche, very targeted, and there was a deadline of compliance coming, so people had to have something in place. But yeah, so my Bank of Santora was the
Yep.
funding for us, and basically took some money out of 401k. Juan also threw some money in to get us started, and our goal was that we needed to generate money like a real company. We didn't really aspire or dream of what other startups do where they like raise funds and live off that. We just wanted to be a real business. So that mentality was good, but it was very difficult, I would
Yeah.
say, because for me, this is my baby from the beginning. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what other co-founders are behind me. It's that it's still me.
Yeah.
Everything goes back on me. So I've taken a few sacrifices in those early years of, just keeping us afloat any way possible. No salary for, what me probably almost 2 years at that point. And then just putting everything I had into it because I knew what it would pay off in the long run by taking that short-term sacrifice. So
Yeah, man,
not
that's a huge
easy.
sacrifice that like a lot of people don't understand about being an entrepreneur. I didn't have to do anything that extreme, but my first how I paid the bills when we first started Risk 360 was basically like one-off consulting gigs. It was just like just enough to pay the bills. Someone was, you know, they needed someone to do a security assessment. I had no solid business model in mind, so I was like, I'll do some contract consulting on the side. And I think me and CW did that, for the better part of a year. And we accumulated a few of our own like real clients along the way, but a lot of it was just like taking out the trash for folks, like consulting work that a lot of folks didn't want to do. But at the end of the day, it's like you get that freedom too. How did you guys get y'all's first clients? Was it on the platform or?
So yeah, our story is probably unique because we started with a very small niche. So, it was more of like just my Rolodex of people in
Yeah,
our network. And from my days being on the regulator side, it was easy to make friends on that side because everyone had to know who I was. And then the moment you flip the script to the vendor side, it was just
yeah,
like, no, I'm not going to talk to you. And but I had some very loyal uh, I would call friends that were our first customers early on, that people that just kind of knew my motives, my mentality, and my kind of thoughtfulness behind anything I wanted to
yep,
do. And those relationships stemmed into our first four customers, I would say. And just by kind of hustling and just saying, this is what we're building, this is going to solve a real problem. You got a deadline, there's no one else that can do it. And we thought it was going to attract a much bigger audience, but it was
yeah,
very, very small to get started.
yeah. I mean, it's interesting when you put real dollars and cents to it, like how compelling the value prop has to be for someone to actually purchase something, even if it's a relatively low price point. It's a sobering moment when you have your own business and you're like, all right, I want to charge for this. There's got to be a really compelling value prop. But it just also feels good though, because when people start actually buying it, you're like, oh, we must have a decent value prop.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So now how many people are you guys now? I mean, you went from just you to some co-founders to what, like 20 or 30 people? How big are you guys now?
I think we're like 17 or 18 or something like that.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. I lost
That's
track.
an interesting inflection point. I don't know if I'm sure you've heard of Y Combinator. We're kind of going through this too. They say that a business moves from a phase one company to a phase two company, I think is what they call it. Phase one being all about product market fit and just grinding. It's mostly the founders doing anything they can to scrap deals together. And then at a certain point, they say it's around the 20-person mark. You move to a phase two company, which is where you've kind of found product market fit. You basically know what you're going to do. Now you're trying to company build, and then you're trying to build an engine that runs without you as the co-founder. So I want to know this because I want to see if I'm doing my job right.
hmm
How do you spend your time as a CEO? Like if you had to break it up into buckets?
Um, Still too much in the weeds on stuff that just given the size and the amount of stuff getting pushed out, it's way too much in the weeds. I think that for any other founder or aspiring founder
Yeah.
to listen, like that'll probably be like that for a while, until you get the team in place to do repeatable tasks. And I
Hmm.
think that's the hardest part was like, how do you structure each team to be able to find repeatability in the things they do? And I think we just kind of found that stride this past year.
Yeah.
So my typical day, and I wouldn't call it a typical day, I kind of have a weekly cadence is Monday, first thing, meeting with the management team, talking about strategy for the week.
Yep.
Tuesdays are typically free for all kind of thing, just like, catching up, doing whatever we need to do. Wednesdays are mostly dedicated to product and engineering. So there's a lot of discussion in the morning, moving on about what's coming, what needs to get fixed, where are we on the product roadmap, tons of back and forth. Thursdays, I've started to block out completely for episode development days. So, like, nothing on the calendar other than the past few weeks because we've launched a lot of crazy stuff, but nothing on the calendar, no meetings. It's just myself and the creative team to sit down and make content,
Yeah.
episodes, all that good stuff. And then Friday is kind of like our marketing kind of recap day. So Friday mornings, like story
Yep.
time, Lauren calls it, where we get to talk about like publicity type stuff. But
Hmm.
I have found that if I container days and block off days for certain things, it makes you focus a lot more on getting things accomplished than just saying, I got to do everything, because that's impossible.
Yeah. I kind of have a similar schedule because like Monday for me is admin, and like we have weekly team meetings, a lot of that kind of stuff. Tuesdays, I actually work on a little bit of marketing that day and then some client work. Wednesdays, I do like management training stuff and then more client stuff. Thursdays is typically more marketing oriented, more product oriented for me. And then Fridays is more product stuff, but I kind of have a similar breakdown by day. Do you do back office stuff? Do you have to do like billing, admin, accounting, or do you have like a co-founder or something that does that?
Juan's like basically finding those repeatability processes and
Yeah.
then putting them in place. So, and then kind of slowly trickling them out. But it's nice because this is how we've been, I think, successful early on is like we always do something first ourselves to kind of find out like before you automate, you got to know where the gaps are, what needs to be done, what's a waste of time. And the problem is we've never been able to hand it off to anyone.
Yeah.
We've been doing that. And it's like, all right, well, you're the only people that can do it. So I think in our next year here, we're going to find that the back office tasks have now become so volumed that we're not able to continue to do them anymore. It's just a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So that's a good problem to have, but a new
For
one
sure.
for us.
I think that's like that 20-person transition because you start having the volume where it's like I can't do this and also be a product owner or a consultant. Are you
Yeah.
do you consider yourself the product owner? Or are you kind of the visionary for where the product goes and the episodes and stuff like that?
Pretty much. I mean, I'm realistically the only real security expert on the
Yep.
team,
Hmm.
right? I mean, that's the whole point is that everyone else comes from pretty diverse backgrounds, has different specialties and skill sets. But at the end of the day, it's kind of I'm still so connected with our audience on like what's coming next and where do we need to be and what differentiates us. So that's where my Wednesdays are really dedicated to, is like finding that continuous fit to keep us on track with not only the market, but also what our vision needs to be.
Mm-hmm. How do you, so for me, like, a 20 or 30 person company, even up to like 50, I think people, rightfully so, think of that as a pretty small company. But it's interesting to me, like as a founder of a company, how fast you lose locus of control, and also just how hard it is. Like the vision and mission is pretty clear to me, but I might talk to an analyst who's pretty new to the team and they don't know anything about the vision or mission. And I take that for granted. So it's like a lot of repetition, a lot of making sure everybody's on the same page, even as a small team. Do you see that phenomena, or how do you go about kind of making sure the whole team has a clear view of the mission?
Yeah, I think that's something that I've kind of learned over the past year is like our communication used to be so good because there was four people
Yeah.
doing everything. So we knew every project, every single conversation, everything going on. The moment that scaled apart, yes, not only do people lose track of what's going on, but they start to lose track of ultimately where the direction of the company is going. So we're working on it like anyone else. We're trying to build different cadence tools, and one of them being at least we do a monthly town hall where it's just kind of a repeat of where we're going. And
Yeah.
I think that one's probably been the most impactful because without it, it's like, how do you hear about the big initiatives?
Yeah.
I mean, never.
Especially
I
everybody being
mean,
remote. There's like less water cooler talk because it's so like, at least part of the team's remote. Yeah.
yeah.
Have you ever, there are these two books. There's one book called Scaling Up by a guy named Vern Harnish. There's another book called Traction by a guy named Gino Wickman. Those books helped me a lot because they're all about like business cadences and meeting rhythms and how to get the vision as a commonly known thing across the business. So for us, the way we structured it is we do a Monday morning management meeting at 8:06 a.m. We do it at a weird time because that helps people remember. Then we do a team meeting that's all hands at 8:36 a.m. Each of those are 30 minutes. Very structured conversations, pretty efficient. Then we do couple monthly meetings. We do like a monthly scheduling meeting. Since we're consulting, we have to be on different projects. And then we do a monthly executive team meeting. Then we do a quarterly all hands meeting. That's like a quarterly strategy meeting. And then we do an annual offsite too. So that's kind of our cadence. That helped us as we kind of became 20 plus. What about one of the things that I think is so cool about y'all's company is you guys get to make cartoons, and like I see your shirt, you have like DD on it, like your
Yeah.
cartoon character. How do you guys, can you talk about that? Like what's the creative process in terms of like coming up with cool content from idea all the way to there's a episode available? What does that look like, and how much beer is involved?
uh, Significant amount as expected, but that's been the funnest part. I think ask anyone that's been through the process. It's it's surprisingly not as fun, I think, anymore because it's more of like get it out the door, efficiency kind of
Yeah,
thing. And for the most part, I wish we had a much bigger team making content. I think ultimately we will in the long run. But for us as a business, we were always trying to find like, well, how do we get ourselves out of being a linchpin and becoming like the candy coating on the entire business, but not every single thing rides on our creative team. And that was hard, and
yeah,
we'll talk probably more about the LMS stuff, but from the process point of view, I think I actually even wrote a blog article about this, and we're going to probably do a webinar next month, I think, on storytelling. But the concept we were not good at the beginning, like just completely transparent. We didn't know what we were doing at all.
sure.
And it took us a couple iterations to kind of find the stride. And then repeatability was what we always landed back on, is that if you're doing something over and over again, the only way to do it where it feels consistent is by being consistent. So we make this process of creating an episode from kind of the original data collection, which is like, what topics do we need to talk about this year or whatever it is. Then you have a bunch of things that you want to train on within those topics. Like that's all the vegetables stuff. So then you take that, everyone sits around and we do what we call a brain writing session. and very different than brainstorming where you come in and like start riffing off each other, because then the power leader in that group takes over and then everyone follows their lead. And it's not really that creative. So brain writing, we actually do have a blog article about this, is everyone sits down, given the data, they all have the same data, and you think up of a story in your head in less than 10 minutes, real fast, about how you can apply that data inside of any story you think of. Everyone writes their own version of the story, and some of them are terrible. Some of them have really good stories. Some of them have good scenes. Some of them have good characters. But ultimately, everyone goes around the room and while drinking whiskey and or beer, of course, and ultimately just tells their story real quick. And what's fun about that process is it sets the precedent of like there's no right or wrong story. It's the whole idea of like say creative stuff that just came out of your head in 10 minutes so we can all use that to build a bigger story.
Yeah.
And rarely have we ever come out of one of those stumped. Like, I think it's only happened like once or twice where we come out, we're like, yeah, all those suck. Like back to the drawing board. They've all stemmed something that has driven us to actually make an episode in one way or
That's
another.
awesome.
And from there, I mean, you go through the typical process of like, once you have that, then that turns into kind of like this concept, it turns into a story outline. That has some iterations, and that turns into a storyboard. And then that turns into like getting an asset list, and then it just evolves. But we've gotten so good at it, it's almost like a mini production studio now.
Yeah. Yeah. And just for context, I should have said this up front. So Nick is the CEO of Curricula, and what you guys do is make security awareness training videos that are consumable by the masses. But the star of your, or the way you go about doing the training is they're kind of cartoon format. They're very engaging. There's a character, Dee Dee, that's a 5-year-old that, can hack people. And so everyone knows about Dee Dee at the company. How much content do you guys like from conception to content out the door? Are you guys doing like one episode at a time? Or there like 5 all in progress in various stages? What does that look like?
Yeah, I wish we could do more in more stages, but basically we try to plan out like an editorial calendar for the year,
Yep.
and sometimes that goes right, sometimes it doesn't. For the most part, it gives some direction. And within that, you basically can layer on top episodes after episodes. So each one has a timeline. We have a production schedule that we try to get an episode out in, typically around 2 months from beginning to end of launching one. And we do about 8 episodes a year, something like that, of new episodes. And while you're building, one episode, it might hit like a brick wall, which is usually me, as being like, hey, what we're training on accurate, or is someone going to like sue us for saying that,
Yeah.
or is that completely off base? And that surprisingly is the hardest part. It's it's a part that I wish I didn't have to be in, but I have to, because every time we release any words that come out of our training, the web content, the videos, the whatever, we always think of the persona of the angry IT guy that's going to look at that and say, that's wrong. I do that differently. This is wrong. Our policy doesn't say that. And it's like,
Yep.
you got to get past that test. And in order to get
Yep.
past that test, we have to reshape our lingo so much back and forth. It takes weeks to
Yeah.
do that. But ultimately, that's what makes it right. And that's what makes us stand out versus the vendors of the world that just put whatever out in front of people and like,
Sure.
who cares if it even is accurate? It's like, that matters to people.
Yeah. I think people, well, before hearing you, I didn't even think about the care it takes, to make a somewhat boring topic engaging and with storytelling. That's hard. But arguably as important or more important is accurate, because you can't lose street cred with the IT guys, the security guys out there when it goes live. So you have a team, like a very interesting makeup of like typical ops kind of folks, yourself, security expert and creative people. How do you attract great people to your organization? Like what's the pitch you're giving them and getting them excited about what you guys do?
It's funny, we don't I wonder how all these other startups attract so much talent. It's crazy. We
Yeah.
don't I wouldn't say we attract a ton of people, but we're very targeted on whoever comes in the door. And a couple of the employees I asked, during their onboarding, like what got you pumped up,
Yeah.
during all this stuff, and like what gets you excited, and we go over our core values and talk about that. And it's funny is that there's this common theme of kind of this ethical behavior that I think we stand out clearly in this space, especially our competitors with like very clear we're not criminals or nor
Yeah.
we're criminals. That's just abundantly clear of how we're so different than our biggest competitors. So because of that, I think a lot of people look at those companies as like the bad guys realistically. And they look at us like, we got someone coming in to do something with good intentions for the industry. Of course, we're all here to make money. It's a business. But at the end of the day, like there's this just cause that we would hope the entire industry buys into of making people better, smarter, and getting through this stuff. And ultimately, you can see which companies fall into the category of like you support the just cause or you just support growing a business to sell off to someone. It's
Yeah.
like you can kind of do both, but you can see it very visible. So the employees that we've attracted have kind of called that out like from the beginning. And I thought that was kind of exciting to keep hearing that over and over again of the people that are joining us are here for more than just the mission. It's like the mission is a big part of it, but it's also kind of the community around what we built with this mission. And I don't know, it's a good demographic to attract because it wouldn't work. And we've had a couple employees come in that just didn't fit right away. And it was just pretty apparent. And it was apparent amongst the group that these employees don't fit. So that's something that I think we're going to continue to strive to attract and try to do our diligence to make sure we're keeping that right profile. Because I think at the end of the day, those are the people that will stand up for you in front of everyone and say, no, like you're treating people wrong. And it's like, if you can
Yeah.
get your employees to stand up for that, well, then that's the whole point is that everyone supports the same theme and best interest amongst each other.
How do you find people today? Is it more like, are you posting a job on LinkedIn? Is it like friends and family, like someone refers a top-notch candidate? Is it all over the place? Any source of good talent?
Everything.
Yeah.
I think that's what I was like, I don't know how these people are doing it, how they hire 100 people in a row, because it's difficult because you have to put in the effort if you want the results. And for the most part, every single case has been a one-off.
Yeah.
Almost every single hire has been a weird one-off. I could not tell you with predictability on how to go find someone, but I do know by spreading your wings and saying, post stuff here, LinkedIn jobs ads here, friends and family here, weird LinkedIn messages here,
Yeah.
outbounding people. It all works. It's
Yeah.
just a matter of like patience and find the right person.
What about interview process? Do you have any special sauce, or is it kind of a behavioral interview? Everybody vets them. Are there things you're looking for during that interview?
There's one, it's like smile, right? Smile on the face. I think like everyone's nervous during interviews, and
Yeah.
I think I've got a pretty good characteristic of reading past the nervousness and like trying to break people down, just like this is not supposed to be nerve-wracking. Like I just want to know who you are as a person. So I think if you could break through that layer on the interview, that's the more efficient interview. Like we could all ask the questions that all everyone sees everywhere, like where do you see yourself in 5 years, and what's your career path look like, and this and
Mhm.
that. But the ones that have stuck out are the ones that went out of their way to be unique. And it's like I never knew that being on the job seeker side when I was growing up and trying to get
Yeah.
jobs. Is like, oh, just apply to as many as you can. If you have good credentials, people will take you. And it's not. It's like, who do you know and how unique were you in your messaging about that company specifically? Those are the only people that have gotten any type of response from us.
Yeah. We do this thing called GWC Core Values. We've written a blog post on it too. But so every candidate starts off with like an intro meeting, which is natural, like a coffee or just a phone call. Then we do a case study because in our consulting, it's like one, it shows
Right.
they want it. B, it's like, can you write? It's kind of a key. Mostly it's do you want it? Because if you're willing to put the effort in, it's a one pager. It's pretty light effort, like an hour of time. Then we do a couple team interviews, like usually a couple rounds of team interviews. Then we measure the candidate against GWC core values. GWC stands for do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to do it? And then our 5 core values. And they get a 0 to 3. They have to get a 16 to get it. We've done that like since hire number 4. However, I will say that it is a lot of effort. Like I don't know if
Exhausting.
that's scalable. If we could do that, like if we had to hire 100 people, but it's definitely helped us keep good folks. I'm with you though. I don't know how people hire like 200 people. I mean, I guess that's why they have whole teams of recruiters and stuff, because it's tough, especially in the security space. Like there's a huge talent shortage as it is.
Yeah. And it's, it's tough, I think tougher when you're not the big brand name that, like
Mm,
in Atlanta here, you got the big giant companies that raised all the funding and they're just hiring and paying up the wazoo. It's like,
yeah,
how do you compete with that? And the only way you can compete is by differentiating. I was like, this isn't just the job, this is about X mission. And you're going to exclude a ton of people, but you're going to find the right people. And I'd rather find less right people than more people that are just, like butts in seats, hire and fire quick. It's like,
yeah.
just not us, not going to be us.
That's how we are too. I think intentional exclusion is okay. Like it's okay if someone knows this isn't right for them early in the process. Like it's not what I want to be doing. It's not exciting, whatever. I'm not on board with the mission. And that's good because it doesn't waste anyone's time. So we try to be pretty upfront about that early in the process, which I think we just put out. So we just hired 3 people. We had over 400 applicants through like LinkedIn and stuff for those 3 positions. And we have someone who is helping out with like what we call vibes. We don't call it HR. We call it vibes management. But she put out LinkedIn posts for those. And I couldn't believe that we had that number of applicants. And half of them were like on paper, not qualified to do it. They probably saw cybersecurity and thought that was cool.
Yeah.
So why not easy apply? The other half were decent candidates. And then we had to narrow it down and take them to the interview. That was like the most work I've done in like the last year. It was so
Oh,
much
yeah.
work. I don't know how people do it.
Pays
So what about like,
dividends, though.
what about new entrepreneurs? So I think there right now, especially, I think the celebrity entrepreneur is kind of a thing. Like everybody thinks it's cool and sexy to be an entrepreneur, and those are the gurus. But it's hard. It's hard work. You need therapy after it, kind of
Oh,
thing.
yeah.
What's your advice for like future entrepreneurs, people thinking about making a leap? What are some, if you had to tell Nick 6 years ago what to do?
Um, yeah, probably a lot of advice I would give myself. Like, everything's not going to be perfect. I think that's just tactical advice. I think we probably could have gone 2 to 3x faster if we just did things and tested it with the market rather than like try to perfect it and then get it out. Hey, that gave us such a solid reputation, but it also made us move a lot slower. So
Yeah.
tactically, yes. As far as like getting into the entrepreneurship, I guess I wouldn't even call it entrepreneurship. Like if you want to solve a problem or start a business, um, it's got to be like a real problem. I think that's the biggest thing is like, oh, well, I'll just make a Instagram competitor. It's so many people use
Yeah.
photos all the time. It's like, all right, well, I mean, then what? Like, you got a million people using it, then what? And it's like, if you don't understand why businesses go from nothing to something to like either being acquired or
Yeah.
integrated, then it's going to be really tough to figure that out. No one's going to figure it out for you. And you're going to throw away a couple of years of your life. So that's probably another one is like come in solving a real problem and it'll actually be a real thing. And then biggest one is like don't glorify VCs. Like for some reason that has been like the biggest thing is just like, oh, X funding, glorification, like we praise VCs. And
Yeah.
reality is like we're the capitalists, they're the capital. So they cannot survive without us. So you need to think of something that's going to be valuable and they're going to just treat you as a stock. I mean, they're there to make money. Like they did not start the business. They are not in the business with you. They are just investors in the business. So don't over glorify the VC game because it's a game. And the sooner you figure that out, the better you'll be because you're not going to feel personally attacked if a VC doesn't respond to you or something. It's like they have numbers that they like, if you don't do this and don't have this and they're not in this, you just are not on the list as a stock to invest in.
Yeah. I mean, I could go on a rant about VCs for sure.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be a measure of success. I agree with that. It's like, for some reason it's sexy. I guess you got to consider the source. It's like who's putting out all the marketing materials? It's like the
Yeah.
VCs and the attorneys.
Yep.
But I agree, man. Running a business sound and profitably and solving a real problem's awesome. I do want to shift gears just a bit and talk about like cybersecurity and security awareness in general. I think I read recently that there's 300, is it, it's 3 million open cybersecurity positions and growing, like huge. And even the ones that, and of the workforce that is available, is largely lacks experience. So there's a pretty big talent gap in the marketplace. No shortage of headlines. Take them for what you will, but obviously, I think some surveys have come out, and CEOs are saying, or boards are saying, I think behind COVID-19, cybersecurity is their biggest concern. So with all that background, like, where do you see the industry? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Like, what's the trends that you're seeing?
It's more popular than ever. Terms are out there, and anytime something's popular, it attracts people. So I think that's good for the industry. I think the problem is, like, it's such a broad term that it's like we're looping it all together. Hey, marketing. It's
Yeah,
like, well, that's broad. Is there not enough marketing jobs? Like, there's a million different paths and directions you can go into marketing, but for some reason, when we say cybersecurity, it's like you're an expert at it, you're a coder and an analyst and
yeah,
you could go on.
yeah,
So I think that's probably the biggest gap right now, is that we're still using like decade old career paths and education inside of institutions to teach about this like daily trending subject. And I don't know what the answer is there. It's like the only answer is like, don't follow a standard educational curriculum. It's like the class should be on like, what's the thing of the quarter? Like, what happened last quarter? Let's talk about that, because then it's going to change again next quarter. Um, my background of at least how I got into this was like I learned all the technical stuff on my own, and all of the business stuff I went to school for and
yeah,
learned how to marry the two together to be able to translate all of my technical learnings into all the new business stuff that I wanted to get really good at. That has helped me tremendously in my career for every which way possible. I feel like that needs to be done
yeah.
as a career path, and not just like you go in and you become a SOC analyst. It's like, I don't want to do that. Like, I'm sure a lot of people don't want to do that, but like yourself, like you got to be able to be technical and explain stuff.
Mhm.
So how do you get those skills? Well, crap, is that in the business school? Is it in the tech schools? I don't know. I don't know what the big answer to that is.
One weird phenomena that exists is, I guess it's not weird. Like, if you take finance, accounting, human resources, whatever, any of those like kind of legacy, every business has that function. Those are hundreds of years old, so they've had a long time to mature. It kind of feels like cybersecurity's old enough to be mature, but I mean, it's like, what, 30 years old or something, if you want to be generous.
Yeah.
So I wonder, but it is a new fundamental. So I wonder if this is just like the natural progression of things, because there's not a lot of sound discipline. Like, I noticed, like, cybersecurity doesn't. What does a great cybersecurity leader look like a CISO or something? It's not. I don't think any two organizations would say the same thing, even when they're posting a job for a CISO. What is cybersecurity? Well, there's 50 career paths. Are you going to be an assessor? Are you going to be an auditor?
Mhm.
Are you going to be a pen tester? Are you going to be a SOC analyst? Are you going to be an incident response specialist? All of those are sub disciplines. And I don't think maybe the education system's caught up. Society certainly hasn't caught up, and we're still figuring this out. And then you tack on the fact that every quarter it's something new. You know, it's tough, man. I don't think this is going away. I think education, which is a great place that you've chosen to start a business, is like the one thing that we definitely need. What about like emerging tech? Is there anything that you're seeing out there? Like, you hear everyone talk about blockchain or machine learning, those kind of things. Anything that you're excited about in the tech space?
Uh, I'm like really into like finding patterns and like ad stuff. I feel like is the craziest, coolest thing, like scariest, but also best thing. Where I was just talking about, I think yesterday, or maybe even this morning, where like I was looking for in the background here to have like an office chair, and it was like a brown leather office chair, and it's like been searching it on Google, looking for it all the time, and like I know I'm caught in some machine
Yeah,
somewhere where it's like this guy's looking for a brown leather chair, get him with an ad, like people will pay for that, and I start seeing it all over the place. And this isn't the first time that's happened,
oh
where
yeah,
things have just happened and you get collected inside of this machine and then you get targeted. And sure enough, I bought a brown leather chair yesterday from an ad that was exactly what I was looking for.
Have you ever seen these YouTube videos of guys like either building log cabins by hand or like digging their own pools in like the Amazon? Have you by chance seen this?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like I was this somehow came up in our office and we were talking about like these videos where dudes are building stuff out in the wilderness. And every single person in my office that was around had also seen those same videos. And I was like, how are we all getting served these same videos? Like what algorithm are we all caught up in where we're getting served these recommendations? But it's the same thing with the brown chairs. I don't know if they're that good or that bad. You know what I mean? It's like they're just serving everybody the same ads, or are they really that good at like identifying us and listening to your voice on Alexa and everything else is pretty crazy.
I think they'll get better. I think everyone's scared of it because it's new, and it's
Yeah.
like, it's funny. We're on Privacy Awareness Day. We're talking with one of our partners on their webinar, Cyvatar, and we're basically talking about, well, is this all bad? And I was like, I'm kind of a proponent. Like, I kind of don't want to see ads for ballerina shoots because I'm not in the market for that. Like,
Yeah.
don't show it to me. But if you start showing me things that I'm interested in or services that I'm interested in, I actually enjoy that. So I know like no one wants to say that out loud, but it's like, do you want to see crappy ads for stuff that you don't care about, or do you want to see stuff that's relevant to you? And I think the boundary is what's being, there's no line to cross because it's just like, hey, cross it, go all the way in and see if people respond negatively. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
What about like your own cybersecurity operating system? Like you're obviously very aware. Are there certain apps you don't use or things that you do use? Do you uninstall all of your operating system off your cell phone and reinstall another one? Like what level are you? How do you kind of operate day to day?
I'm not even that crazy anymore. I used to be way more intense, but like I don't know. I watch like food and cat videos now at nighttime, like just to disconnect from the day. So like I probably look like a clown when you look at like my profile. Like who is this guy? He's watching cats and stuff. Clearly, that guy is not involved in anything serious. But uh, it's funny for like TikTok. I have a friend where we call him our TikTok proxy. So like he'll go on there and he's like, I love the algorithm because it is deeply analyzing my behaviors and finding like weird stuff that only us know about and
Yeah.
showing videos for it. And then he sends us those videos as like a proxy. Like, that's cool. Like maybe that's a thing of the
So it
future of
gets my
TikTok.
humor so well, like my very unique, nuanced humor.
It's
Uh,
nuts.
do you um do you have like Alexa or Google Voice or any of that stuff? Do you have that or avoid it or do you care about it?
Those I turn, yeah. Anything, and there's nothing in the house listening. Every series turns off. There's no Alexa. There's no voice controlled anything because, hey, I know the power of those things. So
Hmm.
we will not, no cameras in here, anything like that. So
Do you have
that
like
is the area where I start to draw the line because it's like, I know what it's going to do, and I'd
yeah.
rather not do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important consideration. Like, it's not only listening when you say Alexa, right? So it'll be interesting. I'm not accusing Amazon of being unethical or anything like that, but it is curious. Like you mentioned the brown chair. Are they going to serve you an ad on the brown chair? What about
Yeah.
what about endpoint devices, laptops and stuff? I know you're on a Mac. Do you use like any kind of browsers or anything like that? Are you kind of a standard use Safari person, or are you
Yeah,
Brave?
yeah, we got a couple because we're testing on different browsers and stuff all the
Yeah,
time. I'm almost always in private browsing mode, which doesn't probably mean much. But I'm cruising around, right? Not doing anything like crazy, I
yeah,
think, anymore, especially as I become more and more disconnected from like the operational part of the business.
yeah,
I'm now just kind of like an employee of the business, just
yeah.
coming in and like doing my regular things. And I think that's good because the less stuff I have access to, the better at this point. Um, but I think at the end of the day, like, I mean, I still look like it doesn't matter all these things that you're doing, the ways that people are getting in is through the easy ways of just like asking for your password and
Yeah.
just giving it to them.
I'm so bad, man. I don't really do anything special. Like I'm with you on the voice stuff. I don't like listening devices. I don't use social media, but not because I'm super secure or private. Like I don't have like a Facebook or anything. But I feel like I also don't take any extra steps. Like I'm not one of our pen test guys in Renegade Labs. He installs Graphene OS, like a different
Oh
open
wow.
source OS on his endpoint device. He pretty much doesn't have any social media presence. Like he's really cognizant of it. And part of me thinks like I should do that as a good security practitioner. But I've kind of taken the opposite way. Is like I'm out there. I'm just like, if anything, I'll own all the Christian Hyatt social medias and not post, you know. It's funny. It's funny how people are handling this.
It's personal risk management. I mean,
Oh
at
yeah.
the end of the day, it's like, how much are you going to weigh the risk of something insane happening to your account because you let it happen versus like a vulnerability and someone highly targeting you? I don't think either of us are at that level where we're being targeted every second like an Elon Musk or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
probably
if
got
someone
some
wants to
time.
target, they can probably get you. Like for
Yeah,
the average Joe, you know, there's not much you
yeah.
can do. So I want to talk about Curricula a little bit. I know you guys have traditionally, so this is exciting to me. I think it's great. So you guys have traditionally focused on the security awareness training aspect. Love y'all's episodes and stuff. I think they're awesome. Some of the best training, the most fun training I've ever seen. But recently you guys kind of are soft announcing, or at least going down the track of kind of opening that whole platform up so folks can create cool training on their own. Like they don't have to wait on you guys to create the training. They can use the same tools you guys to create it as a learning management platform. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was it's funny how much foresight we had coming into last year. Like that was on our roadmap. Like we're going to expose this piece, but it was like, well, at what point? And then coronavirus happened, and crazy year for everyone, lots of ups and downs. And the biggest thing that we kept hearing was like, guys, I have to do everything online now. And I love Curricula. It's super easy. It integrates everything, automates everything. I love the episodes. Can I put my own training in there?
Yeah.
And it's like when you hear that question dozens and dozens and dozens of times in a row, you kind of realize like, what are we waiting for? And subconsciously, we actually called Curricula because we knew there would be a moment in time where we're going to open up to other types of education. And I remember sitting down, I think it was in October or something like that. We're like, what bigger sign are we waiting for than like people asking us for it, us being here, remote learning becoming a priority for every single company
Yep.
in the entire world, which led us to rolling this thing out. So we rolled it out, and I will tell you the feedback has been like night and day. Like I was talking to another entrepreneur, we were joking about like, imagine you had a pizza shop and you make this like great pizza in your eyes, and it's like really good. But for some reason, everyone that comes in your shop says like, I buy the calzone though. It's like, well, hey, you want to try this pizza? I was like, hey, the pizza's cool, but I really actually wanted to come here for the calzone. And then you sell more calzones than pizza, and it's more popular, and everyone's attracted to that. And it's like, is this our calzone right now? Because the feedback in the first 2 weeks here has been like monumental
Yeah.
difference of just responsiveness and stuff. So I see the struggle, and I hear the struggle. I was like, we don't want to lose our backbone. I guess the way we called it is a leveling up versus a pivot, where
Hmm.
it's like, hey, all we're doing is taking the same tools that we've been successful with on a subject that we're successful on teaching, and allowing you to do that with anything on how to make a water bottle. Hey, first you get the metal, and then you do this, and you're basically giving them the technique and tools to be successful at any type of training. I think that's something that's been dramatically overlooked in the LMS market. The LMS market, there's thousands of vendors. They are all highly successful because there's so much need out there. And when you look at security awareness, it's like, here we are with this awesome product, awesome approach, awesome customers, but we don't have 700 sales reps. Like we don't have
Yeah.
$500 million in funding. So it's like, how are we going to make a dent in this conversation? And well, heck, let's go path of least resistance. Let's take that conversation through another route. And now we're going to bring people in the door that their IT people have been ignoring us, but their HR people think we're the next best thing since sliced bread. It's like, man, this is the greatest thing in the world. My LMS sucks. And it's like, did you know that not only it does all your training, but it also takes over this thing that your IT person's been ignoring us for? It's like, why are they ignoring us? It's cheaper than each product individually to do it all under one roof. And we think that's going to make a big, big splash in this industry.
Yeah, that's exciting. Is it available now? Like, are you guys going to do a release where people can purchase the LMS, or can they do that now?
All included, all included. So our professional plan lets everyone create at least one piece of custom content, and then enterprise lets you go nuts. So $3 per employee per month, build whatever the heck you want, plop it in there, make courses on anything your heart desires, and all live, all included as part of the
That's
core
awesome.
software.
That's awesome. Last thing, I know you guys have a thing every year called Curriculaville, and I think that's pretty cool, where you guys like do a conference and you bring speakers in, especially with everyone being remote, that kind of thing. It's a good opportunity to engage. Are you guys doing that again this year?
Yeah, we were hoping to do it in the Bahamas, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Maybe one year we'll do some exotic location, but it'll be online this year and probably around that same October security awareness, National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. But yeah, the whole goal behind that is there's not a lot of good conversation around security awareness in general. It's just kind of whoever made a conference shows
Yeah.
up to stuff. And we wanted to dedicate the conference, especially this year, on honing in on like really remarkable security awareness practices that are happening out there that you never hear about.
Yeah.
So no vendors, no sponsors. It's like just people coming in, talking about this thing and not talking about like just going and buying the biggest company in the world for the cheapest price point. It's like, we're not talking about products. We're talking about actual approaches here.
Yeah.
And if we can get past that as an industry, I think the whole industry would be better off. But it's going to take more curriculas to make a bigger dent on what's out there right now.
Awesome, man. Well, Nick Santora of Curricula. You can find you guys at curricula.com. Atlanta startup. Obviously, we're rooting for each other. Thanks for coming, man. Thanks for talking. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, good seeing you again. I'll never forget. I first saw you guys when I bought, or no, you were giving away the little coffee,
Oh yeah,
ground coffee
we
to
still
stay
have
up at
some of
night or
those
something.
little the security coffee bags. We still got them.
Thought it was greatest idea. So yeah, good to see you again, and same here. Looking for much success in the future for you guys too.
All right, sir. Well, thank you again.